Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The forces of Chaos duel for supremacy as we have Chaos versus Beastmen in this Warhammer World Championship matchup between VM Soter on the Chaos side, and we'll have Agony Twitchy on the Beastmen. So for the Chaos army, the front line is going to be just a bunch of Chaos Marauders. We do also have the Mirror Guard, the Chaos Warriors ROR, considering they do have the same speed as these Chaos Marauders, actually a little bit faster than them, so they will be able to keep up on like regular Chaos Warriors. They do have 100 armor. They have immune to psychology. Very good unit to be bringing. For the rest of the forces, we do have quite a bit of mobility. We have some Chaos Warhounds with poison, but most of that is going to be in the skirmish cab. So we have 3 Marauder Horse Masters on one flank, and on the other flank, it is going to be 3 Marauder Horsemen. So a lot of skirmish for the Chaos side, and they also do have a nice holding tool with these Chaos Spawn. 3 units of those, very nice unbreakable unit. And then in the sky, it is going to be a Chaos Sorcerer, Lord of Shadows, going to be rolling on in, and he's going to be bringing the Enfeebling Foe as well as the Melkoth's Misfine Miasma, and that Melkoth is going to be very helpful in just kind of slowing down the Beastmen rush just a bit, allow their skirmishers to have a little bit of breathing room against like the Senegors and the like. That is going to be it for Chaos, so let's see what we have for the Beastmen. On the Beastmen side, it is going to be Ungor Spearman Herd for that front line, very cheap, only a few units of those, and they will be backed up by a pair of Bestigors to help break through that high armor of the Chaos, and there is going to be some Minotaurs with great weapons, as well as the Butchers of Kalkengard. So the Butchers of Kalkengard going to be coming on in. They do have regen, they do have fear and terror, and we are also going to be getting that blood greed, so plus 15 leadership and immune to psychology when they are in melee. And then we also do have Malagor the Dark Omen for the Lord, going to be rolling on in, and Malagor for his kit. It's going to swing over to that. He is going to be having that Bestial Surge. He also does have Bray Scream, a nice little breath attack to be kind of whittling down some of the lower armored units of the Chaos side. So the Marauders will be some nice good target there. We do have Traderkin as well, and then we also going to have Savage Dominion. So Savage Dominion is going to be able to summon a Cygor onto the field. Should be very nice, kind of just plucking away at some of the skirmishers, and then as well as just kind of helping in that melee grind as to boot as well. We have some Razorgore Herds for that quick mobility, though they only do have 70 speed. We do have some Chaos Warhounds with poison. Both of those do have 95. They do have poison as well, should be able to help kind of chase down these Marauder Horsemen, who do have, actually at the current time, for somehow they have 101 speed. I'm not really sure where that speed is coming from. So they do have smoke. Okay, so that's the Smoke and Mirrors lore passive from the Chaos Sorcerer Lord. So with that Melkoth, so that is a added bonus there to be getting that additional speed. But that is going to be it for the armies. So let's get things rolling, as both sides are going to be just kind of trying to push forward. And really, the Beastmen, they would very much like to kind of contend all of the ranged mobility for the Chaos side, and focusing on the Horsemen is probably one of the better ideas. Just there's just way too many of them, and especially now that you have the Chaos Spawn as well, going to be trying to close that noose around these 2 Chaos Warhounds with poison. And now here is going to be that collapse on this flank. All of the Marauder Horsemen going to be collapsing on those Warhounds, going to be routing off both of those, and a very nice catch early on in this fight by the Chaos side. Chaos Sorcerer Lord going to be doing a little bit of extra damage to these routing Chaos Warhounds, and that is going to greatly free up the mobility for the Chaos side. Now the Horsemen and Horse Masters don't really have much to worry about in terms of speed. They'll be able to outspeed the Razorgore Hordes very easily, and everything else they should be able to just kind of keep away from for the most part. Razorgore Hordes then do elect to just charge right on into those Marauder Horse, or the Chaos Marauders, and they are going to end up rampaging, and now they're going to be stuck in with that Chaos Spawn right behind them, going to be taking a bunch of damage from that. All of these shots on both sides, so getting rear charge from Chaos Spawn across the board, and that is going to be unfortunate for the Beastmen, going to be losing out on a lot of their mobility, but they do still have their Minotaurs as well as the Bestigors, who are going to be a little tough nut to crack. But we have all these Horsemen right now just kind of making sure everything just gets nice and peppered with a bunch of shots, and that Sorcerer Lord is going to be just kind of staying up in the sky. Nothing to really fear. There's no range units to really contend him, but we do have that Savage Dominion going to be getting that Cygor on the field from Malagor, so he's going to be getting some boulders thrown on into all of these fights. But so far, if you just kind of take a look at how things are going, the Mirror Guard is getting broken down very quickly by those Bestigors. The Minotaurs coming on in are able to really rout off all of these Chaos Marauders, and there's a beautiful breath attack right into these Bestigor herds. Going to be taking a ton of damage to them. but there is just a ton of Chaos Forces here. We have 2 of the Chaos Spawn going to be bogging down these Bestigor herds, and they are going to end up getting routed here as that Chaos Sorcerer does charge in, terrifying these guys off, and might be just transition to a natural route, but there is still these Butchers of Kalkengard going to be a tough nut to crack. They should be able to trade well into pretty much everything that is on the field right here, and having that fear and terror is going to be very, very helpful, and they will be able to help kind of break down that Chaos Sorcerer Lord just a little bit more. And I did miss earlier on, there was a Gorbel as well for the Beastmen. A nice anti-large armor piercing. Unfortunately, he is going to get pushed off the field here by that Chaos Sorcerer Lord. Going to be chasing him down, especially with all of these Marauder Horsemen. Should be able to make sure that that Gorbel does stay off the field once and for all. As taking a look at things, though, the Chaos side has a slight edge in that balance of power, even with 2 Cygor summons on the field. Cygor going to be getting some nice hits into these Marauder Horse Masters as they are nice and grouped up, and we are going to be getting that Vile Tide or that Brace Scream going to be going right through here, doing a ton of damage to them. Or not really a ton of damage, some nice decent damage, and the Cygor is going to be just continuing, both of them raining in their shots, already taking these guys down to half health, but that summon is going to dissipate, and the other one is probably going to be on its way out as well. That breath attack does go just a little high, but it does clip through the Butchers of Kalkengard, able to do some nice, decent bit of damage, but they are able to terror route these Chaos Warriors, Chaos Warhounds with poison, get them off the field. But still, there's just a bunch of ammunition left on all these Horsemen, Horse Masters. Plenty to go around for what's left for the Beastmen, and the Beastmen are just really condensed in this center pocket here, and taking rid of these Bestigors. There is some mobility left for the Beastmen, but not a whole lot. We do get the Gorbel coming back. Unfortunately, Chaos was unable to make sure that thing did get chased off, and that is going to be a major threat on the field. The Cygor able to kind of really just rout off the last of all of the Chaos just infantry. The Marauders take another shot from that Vile Tide, doing a nice bit of damage there, but the Butchers of Kalkengard are getting quite low. Now, of course, they do have regen, but they don't regen all that fast, and they don't have that kind of time right now to be able to just kind of pluck away at everything that is left. There's just so much focus fire coming in from all the Horsemen, Horse Masters. They are focusing these guys down, trying to get them as low as possible. And they are going to be hunting now for that Chaos Sorcerer Lord, though, who is a little bit stuck in some Ungor Spearmen. And unfortunately, he is unable to get the space to take off, gets staggered by the charge of the Butchers. And now they are going to be able to start beating it down on this Chaos Sorcerer Lord. Battle power, though, is still heavily in the Chaos's favor. Though if they are going to lose their Lord here, that could be a big problem for Chaos, especially with how low everything is armored. If those Butchers are able to sustain themselves long enough, they might be able to tank out all of the damage that is left. And the Chaos Sorcerer just trying to get just into the air right now. He does not want to be stuck in with these Gorbels. However, the Butchers are starting to waver right now, just from all of the shots that charge in from these Marauder Horse Masters is going to be enough to break the Butchers, and that is going to free up some space for that Chaos Sorcerer Lord to kind of take off into the sky. The Gorbel does get another hit into the rear. Looks like that Chaos Sorcerer Lord now going to be turning and fighting, as just there isn't a whole lot left. It is just that Gorbel left, and that looks like that is going to be all she wrote. Beastmen to fall to Chaos. That is going to be game 1 to VM Soter. So let's update to that scorecard real quick there, and then we'll get on into that after battle report. So on the Beastmen side, the Butchers of Kalkengard doing quite well, 1,600, 1,000 on the Minotaurs, doing some decent damage with those guys. Unfortunately, the mobility for the Beastmen really suffered heavily in this match, and that was really kind of the biggest problem for them. They needed to be a lot more conservative with their mobility, because that was their only tool to really just screen out the Horsemen, Horse Masters, because once they were gone, they really just weren't able to contend them, and they were just able to fire off all of their ammunition, and I'm sure they're going to generate some very decent value there. So only one of the Razorgore herds really did some decent work. Chaos Warhounds with poison also getting taken out of the picture very quickly, and they just needed, the mobility was the biggest loss here. All of the Bestigors didn't really do all too well either. And really, most of that damage was by the monstrous units. So the Gorbel, both of the Minotaurs, getting most of the damage for the Beastmen. And onto the Chaos side, the Chaos Spawn did very well at dealing with that mobility early on. They got some nice hammer and anvils in against those Razorgore herds, and especially closing the noose on the Chaos Warhounds with poison as well. Then we look into the Marauder Horse Masters, 1,100 on these guys, 1,000, 1,400, pretty much as expected. These guys got a ton of value in. Once they had free reign of the battlefield, they're just able to kind of pluck away and were just uncatchable at that point. Nothing was going to be able to do anything to them. The front line, not really doing a whole lot. The Chaos Horse Warlord got into a pretty scary spot in the end. They're taking a ton of damage by the Gorbel and Minotaurs, but otherwise was able to generate a little bit of value. And of course, having that Lore of Shadows core passive was also quite helpful, though in the end of the game it wasn't too much of a big deal. But having that 101 speed made those horsemen and horsemasters uncatchable by even the Chaos Warhounds with poison, which is a very nice thing to be having, allowing them to get those engagements that they needed to. And that mobility definitely won it out in game 1. But now let's roll on into game 2. In this second bout between VM Soter and Agony Twitchy, the Azrai going to be trying to prove their mastery of the bow as the Wood Elves face off against Norska. Soter will be on the Wood Elves, and Agony Twitchy will be commanding the Norskins. So for the Wood Elf army, it is going to be 4 Deepwood Scouts in that front. Going to have that nice little vanguard just up in front of their Dryads, who they will be kind of slowly retreating behind. Now they do have some very nice range. They have that 360 fire. And of course, they do have stock to boot as well. So these guys can prove a very helpful to just kind of slowly kind of kite away from the Norskins, and they'll trade very well into pretty much everything that the Norskins have, especially their frontline troops, like Berserkers, Marauders. Even though they do have shields, they'll provide very much effective fire support for these Dryads in the front line, who do have that physical resist being a tree spirit, and of course they have that immunopsychology as well, which can help against some of the terror causing units of the Norskins. We also are going to be seeing a Branch Wraith coming on in with that Melkos, Mystifying Miasma, and Earthblood. And we do have a Glade Lord as well with that Prey of Anathrema. So Prey of Anathrema going to be giving a nice little net, reducing the missile resistance as well of any unit that does catch in its grasp. And it does have a few charges of those. And off into the forest, we are going to be seeing some wild riders sitting in these trees. Going to be looking for any of some sneaky vanguards by the Norskins. And there will be no Norskan Warhounds vanguarded in the back, so their job is going to be done for the meantime, as they are going to be now turning their attention to the front. And one of these is the Wild Hunters of Kurnus, going to be rolling on in, and they do have that magical attacks, which is going to be cutting through that physical resist of the Skin Wolves, which is a very common pick here, and they'll trade much better than the regular Wild Riders, who do lack that magic damage. Now for the Norskins, all of their vanguarded units are going to be off in the tree line over here, as we do have a couple Norskan Warhounds in the trees, mixed in with a pair of Marauder Horsemen with throwing axes, and we are going to be seeing all of the mobile core as well. So we have 4 units of the Armored Skin Wolves going to be sitting in here. Now they all have that bonus versus large, so the Maws of Savagery ROR does have armor piercing, and it is also have Vanguard as well, though not such an important feature to be having, especially when everything's going to be so grouped up as they are. We are going to be seeing a Shaman Sorcerer of Death rolling in with Spirit Leech and the Fate of Yuna, especially with that ROR Stag Knight being such a prevalent pick here. They need some magic damage to be able to deal with them. And then we'll also be seeing Wolfric the Wanderer with Seafang, Fight or Die, as well as the Hunter of Champions. So they're going to be coming on in, trying to just kind of shut things down for those. And the front line is going to be 3 Marauders backed up by a pair of Marauder Berserkers. So a little smaller on that front line, so they're really going to be relying very heavily on this forest deployment here. Going to be trying to get through the tree line here and then just kind of block as many of the shots as possible before they are going to try and get into that archer line. So let's get things rolling, as the Norskins going to be retreating back into the trees here, as the shots from the Deepwood Scouts going to be firing right on in. They are going to be taking a bit of damage on that initial volley, as more shots now going to be turning their attention to the approaching Marauders and the Marauder Berserkers. And the Marauder Berserker is going to be definitely the key target for these guys, as there's just plenty of archers to go around to just kind of turn their attention to wherever they need to. And all of the Wild Hunters now are going to be condensing their attention to the tree here, as the Norskan Warhounds going to be charging on forward, going to be pushing these Deepwood Scouts back. Now, Deepwood Scouts back, since they do have the 365, they're still going to be able to fire away. Dryads are going to be rotating around to try and screen these guys out, one of which is the Beast of Tashnar, of course. They do have that bonus versus large themselves, but right now they are just going to be trying to get their mobility to get into these Deepwood Scouts, shut them down. We do have a Sea Fang coming in, but the Deepwood Scouts already on the move. Going to be missing that cast there as it just goes harmlessly into the tree line. But in comes the approaching Skinwolves as they do charge on forward. The Wild Hunter is going to be Wild Rider is going to be turning around, getting a little charge in as more and more are going to start collapsing. And these guys getting the charge off is going to be very beneficial for them. They have a nasty charge bonus of 67 coming right on in, and we are going to be getting, I believe, a Earthblood as well. Going to be going down on these Wild Riders, and the ones that did get charge are getting a just broken down very quickly. But all of the ones that got the charge is just taking it to the Skinwolves. They're taking a ton of damage between them, and they're just unable to really get into that back line. The Wild Hunters of Kurnos, though, did take a ton of damage themselves, despite them having that magic damage. The Maws of Savagery, pretty much both of the RORs taking each other out, but there is that Prey of Anathrema going to be going down onto these armored Skinwolves, and they're just going to be taking all the shots from these Deepwood Scouts. But the Deepwood Scouts now getting pushed back by the Norskan Warhounds as they do charge forward. The Dryads going to be trying to screen them up, but there is only one unit of Dryads, and there's 2 units of the Norskan Warhounds. Going to be very hard to keep them all under wraps, so one of the Wild Riders is going to be turning their attention away from the Skinwolves, who have all been pretty much dealt with for the time being. Now, of course, they do regen, but for now, their attention can be turned towards these Norskan Warhounds, making sure that they do get kind of pushed off. One of them is going to get routed by these Dryads, and now the other one going to get collapsed upon by the Wild Riders, and that should be all she wrote for those 2 Norskan Warhounds. Wood Elves off to a very strong advantage here in the balance of power. Rest of the Deepwood Scouts now have that mobility advantage, so they're just going to be able to kind of pluck away, slowly kite back, especially with their 360 fire, and things looking very good for the Wood Elves here in that late game. All of these Skinwolves going to be getting pushed back. Some of them have returned, and they will be regenning, but they have taken so much damage, and Wolfric the Wanderer as well has taken quite a bit of damage, but he's been able to dish some out to that Glade Lord in return. And here's going to be another Sea Fang. This time going to be trying to go through some of these Dryads here, but is once again going to be a swing and a miss, as the Wild Riders and the rest of the Dryads do kind of dodge that kind of by mistake more so than by design. And just all of the Marauders just slowly just getting whittled down bit by bit. All the Berserkers, all of the Norskins are just in very dire straits at this point, and engaging in the tree line sure isn't going to be helping with all the Dryads or all of the Wood Elves having that little advantage when they are in the trees. So unfortunately for the Norskins, it looks like this is going to be all she wrote. Looks like BM Soter going to be taking the series 2-0. And this game on the fringes of army losses, and there it goes. Norskins do rout, and that is going to be it. The Wood Elves do pull through, so let's take a little look at that after battle report and update the scorecard as well, as Soter does take that series 2-0. And for the Norskins, the Skinwolves actually did do a decent amount of work, though for the armored variant, they still weren't able to pay for themselves. They really had to be pretty cautious, especially with that many Wild Riders on the other side. They just needed to be more patient, I think. They needed to just try and they needed to get the charge. They needed to avoid getting charged at all costs, especially considering that massive charge bonus that the Wild Riders get. Like I think I said, it was like 67 with what the bonus, and so it was pretty considerable, and they just wreck shop when they do get that charge, especially that Wild Rider or the Hunters of Kurnos getting that magic damage to boot as well to cut through their physical resist. Rest of the forces, unfortunately, the Marauder or the Norskan Warhounds did take a ton of damage. They tried to get into the Deepwood Scouts, and they almost were able to, but some quick thinking by the Wood Elves Wild Riders were able to kind of counteract that. The throwing axe is kind of a unfortunate state of things as well, and just all of the Marauders, unfortunately, all only getting like 100, not even 200 for any of these guys. They just got shot to pieces by the Deepwood Scouts and were unable to do enough damage to those Dryads in return. I think you really need Lore of Fire here to help deal with those Dryads, because if you get a nice little burning head, it's going to be able to roast those guys pretty efficiently. And I mean, the Shaman Sorcerer of Death, it's almost a good idea to bring 2 Shaman Sorcerers. You bring one of Death and one of Fire, because then the Wood Elves are going to have a lot harder time in sniping them out, because if they do focus on that, it's pretty much a guarantee that they're going to be able to take at least one caster out without too much of a problem. So that's why generally having two is a good idea anyways. Wolfric wasn't able to do too much work either. As for the Wood Elf side, the Wild Hunter's getting 1,000, and one of these guys getting 1,400, other one 600. So not quite as much value as I was initially expecting. I think most of that value was going to be in these Deepwood Scouts, as is kind of the case there. One of them getting almost 1,000. Dryads as well, doing some decent work. A couple of them able to pay for themselves. This guy getting 1,100 on the Dryads. A lot of damage from them. And of course, they do have that magic damage as well, which will of course help with against those Skin Wolves to even more so. We do have the Branch Wraith did 412, and then the Glade Lord, but most of that was going to be done by those Deepwood Scouts. And Wood Elves played it very, very well, very patient, and then getting the charges when they needed to, and kind of just dealing with the armored Skin Wolves first and foremost, and then just kind of letting all the Marauders and Berserkers just kind of fall just like a tide against the rocks against the Dryads. And that is going to be all for today, though. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good one.